You ever walk into a room, and without saying a single word, people notice, they pause, they glance, not because of how you look, but because of something else, something they can feel. That is your aura. And sometimes, that aura is too powerful, not for you, but for them. Let me tell you what happens when your energy becomes something not everyone can handle. You speak with honesty, and they call you a too direct. You act with clarity, and they say you're a controlling. But you're not. You're just certain of who you are and where you're going. And most people are not used to that level of certainty when you dream big. When you think different, you disturb the calm waters around you. You challenge what's normal. And guess what? That makes others uncomfortable. Because your aura doesn't blend in, it shakes things up. You don't talk to prove. You don't speak to please. Your presence alone speaks louder than words. And sometimes, people fear silence. Because in silence they feel exposed, while you feel empowered. Your wins, they clap but with tight jaws. Your losses, they celebrate quietly. Because your light makes their shadows feel seen. It's not your fault. It's just your aura doing its job. People look to you, not because you asked, but because your vision pulls them in. You don't chase followers, you chase purpose. And that attracts people who are searching for direction. You don't lower your values to fit in. You don't shrink to be liked. You walk away from anything that costs your peace. And that, my friend, intimidates those who trade their values for acceptance. While others panic, you pause. While others blame, you build. That calm strength, that quiet power, it's rare. And when others see it, they don't know whether to admire you or fear you. So if you're wondering why people pull away, stay silent, act strange. It's not always about you. It's about what your presence brings out. And sometimes that's exactly how it should be. Because your aura wasn't made to be handled by everyone. It was made to lead those who are finally ready to rise. People who carry a powerful aura often find themselves misunderstood, not because they are flawed or difficult, but because the strength of their presence disturbs the comfort of others. When someone has a clear sense of identity and a strong internal compass, their words and actions carry a weight that can be misinterpreted. It's not that they intend to intimidate or overpower. In fact, most of the time, they are simply being authentic. But to those who are unsure of themselves, confidence can look like arrogance, certainty can look like stubbornness, and calmness can look like emotional distance. When you express yourself directly, it often makes others uncomfortable. You're not trying to be blunt or hurtful. You're trying to be honest. You believe that clarity is kindness, yet others may label you as too harsh or too intense. Why? Because they've become accustomed to vague, sugar-coated communication. In a world that often celebrates politeness over truth, your straightforwardness feels like a challenge. You aren't attacking, you're just not playing along with emotional games. And that, to many, feels confrontational. People also tend to project their insecurities onto those with strong auras. If someone is unsure of their path, your clarity becomes a mirror. It reflects back to them the areas of their life where they feel lost, indecisive, or weak. Instead of admiring your focus, they resent it. Instead of seeking your guidance, they avoid you. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because your presence shines a light on the doubts they work so hard to hide. Their discomfort has less to do with who you are and more to do with what you represent. In social groups, this misunderstanding often shows up subtly. You might notice people becoming quiet when you enter a room. Or they might second-guess their words when speaking to you. It's not fear, it's tension. The kind of tension that comes when someone feels they're being silently observed by someone who sees through things. Your aura doesn't allow for pretense. People sense that. They feel like they can't pretend around you, and that makes them nervous, even if you're not doing or saying anything out of the ordinary. Another layer of misunderstanding comes from how you process emotions. People with strong auras tend to have deep emotional intelligence. You feel things strongly, but you don't always express them in conventional ways. You might internalize your thoughts, reflect deeply before speaking, or simply choose silence when others expect noise. This restraint is often misread. People might think you're cold, detached, or uncaring. But the truth is, you're simply choosing to respond with intention rather than react impulsively. You value alignment over approval. Your vision for the future can also be a source of misunderstanding. You think long-term. You plan. You see the bigger picture. But when you speak from that perspective, others who are focused only on the moment may not relate. They might say you're unrealistic, too serious, or even out of touch. They don't understand that you're not trying to impress anyone. You're building something meaningful. And sometimes, builders look strange to those who are just trying to survive day to day. Lastly, your ability to stay true to yourself, no matter the room you're in, often gets misinterpreted as inflexibility. But the truth is, you're not trying to dominate. You're just unwilling to shrink. Okay. You've done the work. You know your values. You know your worth. And you refuse to trade authenticity for acceptance. That kind of unshakable self-respect makes others either gravitate toward you or misunderstand you entirely. And in most cases, it's the latter. Not because you're wrong, but because they've never seen a kind of energy up close before. When you carry a powerful aura, your dreams are often larger than life, and your thoughts rarely fit within traditional boundaries. You think in terms of what can be, not just what is. This mindset doesn't just set you apart. It shakes people. The moment you begin to speak boldly about your vision or act on an idea that others wouldn't dare to try, you become a disruption. Most people don't like disruption. They crave predictability, comfort, and routine. And here you come, challenging all of it simply by being yourself. You don't even need to intentionally provoke change. Your very presence becomes a symbol of what's possible. And that possibility is threatening. Why? Because when people see someone breaking limits, it forces them to confront the ones they've placed on themselves. Your ambition doesn't sit quietly. It echoes, it expands, and it challenges everyone around you. People feel that. And many of them, instead of being inspired, become defensive. They start to criticize, minimize, or question your path. Not because it's wrong, but because it makes them question their own. Your confidence in walking a path less traveled, whether in career, relationships, or purpose, disrupts the quiet agreements most people have with mediocrity. They've told themselves it's okay to settle, to wait, to shrink. And here you are doing the exact opposite. You wake up early. You read books they avoid. You take risks they won't touch. And just by doing that, you're forcing them to consider the gap between where they are and where they could be. That gap makes them uncomfortable. Even your energy speaks of disruption. You don't sit quietly when things feel wrong. You don't nod in agreement just to maintain harmony. Your aura has a truth-telling nature. You ask questions others avoid. You push boundaries others accept. And because of that, people sometimes label you as a difficult or rebellious. But you're not trying to create conflict. You're trying to create growth. The problem is, most people are more afraid of change than they are of stagnation. When you walk into a room, you don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Your energy speaks volumes. Your presence alone makes people reflect, sometimes uncomfortably so. It's not about showing off. It's about being so connected to your own purpose that your existence alone forces people to examine theirs. That can be intense. And for those still hiding from their truth, your presence is like a flashlight in a dark room. They squint. They turn away. Elon. They label you a too much, but really, it's just too bright. You'll often find that people try to tone you down. Maybe don't aim that high. Be more realistic. You're moving too fast. But these aren't always pieces of advice. They're projections of fear. When you dream big, it triggers the smallness in others. When you act bold, it highlights their hesitation. Your aura, strong and unapologetic, invites them to level up. But not everyone is ready to rise. Some would rather pull you back than rise with you. And that resistance, it's not personal. It's protective of the limitations they've grown comfortable with. At the core of it all, your aura disrupts because it awakens. It awakens potential, it awakens doubt, and it awakens questions that have long been buried. People want peace, but often the kind that comes from silence, not transformation. You, however, bring the kind of peace that follows truth. The kind that only arrives after chaos is cleared. And that's a rare kind of energy. One that doesn't sit quietly in the background, but instead rises, shakes, and redefines everything around it. When your aura is powerful, words become secondary. You begin to understand the strength of stillness, the depth of presence, and the wisdom in choosing silence over noise. You don't feel the urge to speak just to be heard. Your energy already communicates volumes. In a world where people are constantly trying to prove themselves, your silence becomes unsettling. Because you're not playing the game. You're not scrambling for approval. And that in itself is power most people don't know how to interpret. You have learned that silence is not emptiness. It's full of awareness. It holds your thoughts, your focus, your intention. When others argue to dominate or to defend their ego, You pause. You observe. You analyze. And that moment of pause makes people uneasy. They expect resistance. They expect noise. But your silence becomes louder than any shout. It signals that you are in control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. And self-mastery is intimidating to those who are ruled by their impulses. You're the type of person who enters a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. People feel something different. They might not be able to explain it, but they notice it. There's a gravity to your presence. You don't have to demand attention. It naturally gravitates towards you. And the reason is simple. Your aura doesn't seek validation. It radiates certainty. You've done the inner work, and it shows in the way you walk, the way you listen, and the way you choose your words, carefully, deliberately. People often mistake your quiet nature for disinterest, but they couldn't be more wrong. You're not detached. You're deeply connected. You just don't waste energy on shallow conversations or surface-level drama. You'd rather sit in silence than fill space with noise. You observe, you sense, you study people, often before they even speak. And when you finally do speak, every word hits harder. Not because you're louder, but because you've taken the time to understand what needs to be said, and what doesn't. There's a discipline in you that many don't recognize. The discipline to remain calm when provoked. To remain still when others are rushing. To listen when others are shouting. It's a quiet kind of strength, but it's powerful. Most people equate silence with weakness. They assume if you're not reacting, you're not feeling. But you are. But you are. You feel everything. You've just learned how not to be controlled by those feelings. That level of emotional control is rare. And when people sense it, they don't always admire it. Sometimes they fear it. This kind of energy, the kind that doesn't chase attention, doesn't beg to be seen, doesn't ask to be understood, challenges people. Because most are used to the loudest person in the room being the leader. But your presence rewrites that script. You lead through being, not through boasting. You inspire trust by being consistent, not by demanding loyalty. And people who operate from ego don't know what to do with someone who doesn't play that same game. They can't control you. They can't control you. They can't predict you. And that unpredictability makes them uneasy. Eventually, you'll notice how few people truly understand the language of your silence. Many will try to fill it. Some will misread it. But the rare few, the ones who are also evolving, will respect it, because they'll feel what you feel. They'll understand that silence is not the absence of words. It's the presence of depth. And when you communicate from that depth, even without speaking, your aura continues to speak for you. Quietly, boldly, and without apology. When your aura carries true power, it naturally draws attention, but not all of it is positive. While some people are inspired by your light, others are threatened by it. Jealousy begins to creep in, often from places you least expect. Friends who once celebrated your growth suddenly go silent. Colleagues who once supported your ideas now question your every move. The truth is, your presence disrupts their sense of self, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your energy shines too brightly next to their insecurities. Your wins become a mirror for their stagnation. When you rise, they're forced to look at where they've stayed still. You may hear them say things like, "You've changed," or "Don't forget where you came from," as if growth is betrayal. But what they're really saying is, "You've grown beyond the limits I placed on you." A jealousy rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind sarcasm, backhanded compliments, and quiet distance. You'll feel it more than you'll hear it. It's in the energy, the shift, the sudden silence after your success. This jealousy doesn't only stem from what you have, it stems from what you are. You walk with a sense of purpose. You move differently. You see through people and situations quickly, and that level of clarity can make others uncomfortable. While they're trying to figure out how to fit in, you're busy building something meaningful. And because they don't understand how you operate, they often assume there's something unnatural or unfair about your rise. But they don't see the work you've done in silence. They only react to the light that now shines out loud. Your presence makes them feel exposed. Not because you judge them, but because your energy reveals what they've been hiding, even from themselves. You become a spotlight, unintentionally. You don't seek to diminish others, yet somehow your authenticity reveals their performance. You don't try to compete, but your calm confidence dismantles their need to prove. It's not you they dislike. It's the version of themselves they see when standing next to you. And instead of doing the inner work to grow, they project envy outward. Often you'll notice the jealousy in subtle forms: avoidance, hesitation, or quiet gossip. It won't always be loud. Sometimes the people closest to you will withdraw, not knowing how to handle your evolution. You'll invite them to rise with you, but not everyone is ready to grow. Instead of climbing, they'll criticize. Instead of learning, they'll label. The saddest part is they could learn from your journey, but their pride convinces them they already know enough. So rather than receive your light, they reject it. In moments like these, your aura becomes both a blessing and a burden. You'll find yourself asking, "What did I do wrong?" But you did nothing wrong. You're only a mistake who was becoming someone they didn't expect you to be. You outgrew the role they assigned to you. You became someone who no longer needed their permission to shine. And that's a powerful shift, one that not everyone can accept. Not because you're unworthy, but because they're unready. Despite the jealousy, you cannot dim your light to make others comfortable. You cannot shrink to fit the space they've prepared for you. Your aura was not made to hide. It was made to expand, to awaken, to inspire. The envy of others is not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to remain true to who you are. Because while some will reject your power, others will rise because of it. And those are the people your aura is truly meant for. When your aura is powerful, leadership becomes something you embody, not something you pursue. You don't need a title, a microphone, or a crowd to follow you. People sense your direction even when you walk alone. Well, your conviction, your purpose, and the way you carry yourself act like a magnetic force. You're not shouting instructions or demanding respect. You're simply moving forward with intention. And that silent movement attracts attention. And movement attracts attention. It draws people in. They want to know where you're going, and more importantly, how you know so clearly where you're headed. You don't ask people to follow you. They choose to. And not because you promise them comfort, but because you inspire trust. People feel safe around you, not because you have all the answers, but because you are grounded. You aren't easily shaken. Your energy is consistent. Your decisions are measured. And your presence creates calm in chaos. That stability is rare. Most people are reactive, uncertain, and emotionally scattered. When they see someone who isn't easily moved by noise, someone who leads with quiet strength, they naturally align themselves behind that presence. This kind of leadership doesn't seek applause. You're not interested in being the loudest in the room. You're not there to impress. You're there to build, to grow, to move forward. And because of that, you don't lead from ego. You lead from purpose. People can feel that difference. They know when a leader is authentic. They know when someone is walking their talk. And even if they don't always understand your vision, they respect the way you honor it. Your consistency becomes your credibility. What truly sets you apart is that you don't need a crowd to validate your direction. You're comfortable walking alone. That solitude, that independence, it's not loneliness, it's strength. Many people struggle without constant reassurance, but you've learned to trust your inner compass. You've built a relationship with yourself that's stronger than external noise. That self-trust becomes visible in how you move. And ironically, it's what makes people want to follow you even more, because they see someone who doesn't need them to lead them. Another aspect of your leadership is your refusal to manipulate or control. You don't chase followers. You don't beg for loyalty. You simply show up, clear, intentional, and unshaken. People are drawn to that because deep down, they're tired of being controlled. They want someone who leads without strings attached. Your aura doesn't scream, "Follow me." It whispers, "Walk with me if you're ready." That quiet confidence is far more powerful than any demand. It gives people the choice, and in doing so, earns their respect. Even your failures become leadership lessons. When you fall, you don't hide. You don't blame. You reflect. You adapt. And people see that. They watch how you handle setbacks and realize that strength isn't in perfection. It's in resilience. The way you respond to difficulty becomes an example. People may not tell you directly, but they are learning from your process. Your leadership is not in the moments you win. It's in how you rise after you've been knocked down. That humility mixed with unwavering belief becomes a model for others to follow. Ultimately, your leadership is a reflection of your energy, not your effort to impress. You lead because you live with purpose. You inspire because you stay aligned. And even when you don't intend to lead, people look to you. Not because you ask them to, but because your aura speaks to the part of them that's ready to grow. And once they've seen what that looks like, they can't forget it. Because deep down, your presence reminds them of who they could become. if they chose to rise just like you. When your aura is powerful, your standards become non-negotiable. You're not rigid, you're rooted. You don't operate from arrogance, but from alignment. You know what values matter to you, and you're not willing to betray them for convenience, acceptance, or comfort. This alone sets you apart in a world where people constantly compromise just to be liked, just to fit in, just to avoid standing alone. But not you. You've chosen self-respect over popularity, and that decision, while difficult, makes your presence undeniable. People around you often try to test those boundaries. They challenge your limits subtly or directly just to see how far they can push. Maybe they joke about your discipline. Maybe they dismiss your ethics. Maybe they invite you into situations that go against what you stand for. But you don't flinch. You don't fold. Your no is clear, firm, and unapologetic. That kind of self-discipline is rare. And for some, it's threatening. Because your refusal to bend makes them question why they bend so easily. You've likely walked away from situations others would have tolerated. You've ended friendships, declined opportunities, and left rooms where your energy was not respected. And you didn't do it out of ego. You did it out of necessity. You know what happens when you compromise your peace just to make others comfortable. You've tasted that inner conflict before. And now, you protect your standards not as a shield, but as a reflection of how far you've come. You didn't build this version of yourself just to watch it get dismantled by people who don't understand your worth. Your standards are not demands you place on others. They're promises you've made to yourself. You don't expect perfection from people, but you do expect integrity, effort, and respect. If those things are absent, you don't beg, you don't chase, you simply remove yourself. That kind of response confuses people who are used to manipulation, guilt-tripping, or people-pleasing. But your aura doesn't operate from fear of loss. It operates from clarity of purpose. You know who you are, and you won't stay where you are not honored. In relationships, this can make things complicated. Some people are initially drawn to your strength, but later feel intimidated by it. They mistake your emotional independence for distance. They want your loyalty but aren't prepared to meet you with the same depth. And when you hold them accountable, when you ask for honesty, presence, or growth, they retreat. They say you're too intense or too serious. But really, they're just not used to someone who doesn't settle for half-hearted connections. Your aura demands authenticity, and that scares those who still wear masks. You don't tolerate disrespect, even in small doses. You've trained yourself to recognize subtle manipulation, passive aggression, and energetic imbalance. And instead of waiting for things to escalate, you address it. Or you exit. Because experience has taught you that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. You've sacrificed too much in your past to rebuild yourself. You won't allow that growth to be undone by environments that insult your energy. And every time you choose self-respect, your aura gets stronger. Your standards aren't meant to isolate you. They're meant to elevate you. They're meant to elevate you. They act as a filter, removing what's misaligned and making space for what's meant. Yes, they make some people uncomfortable. Yes, they may leave you walking alone at times. But eventually, they lead you to those who don't just understand your power. They match it. Until that alignment happens, you don't lower your frequency. You maintain your standard. Because the right people, the right opportunities, and the right path can only find you when you're rooted in the truth of who you are, still you are. When your aura is powerful, chaos does not consume you. It sharpens you. While others panic at the slightest disruption, you become still. There's a calmness in your energy that doesn't come from ignorance, but from deep awareness. You understand that life will test you, that storms will come, and that panic never solves anything. So you train yourself to respond, not react. In the midst of confusion, your presence alone becomes an anchor. People look to you for direction, not because you shout the loudest, but because you are the most centered. This calm energy you carry didn't come naturally. You earned it. You've been through fire, through moments when your back was against the wall, and you had no choice but to endure. And in those moments, you discovered something. Stillness is a strength. You learned how to find clarity when everything was unclear. You learned how to breathe through fear, how to stand firm when everything was shifting. That experience built a deep kind of resilience inside you. And now when chaos strikes, your energy does not flinch, it grounds. Most people are constantly in reaction mode. One bad conversation ruins their day. One small failure makes them spiral. But you've trained your mind. You understand that not every emotion needs a reaction. Not every trigger deserves your energy. Your calmness isn't avoidance, it's control. And that control is powerful. It unnerves people who are used to emotional volatility. They wonder why you're not yelling, why you're not scared, why you're not falling apart. And the truth is, you already have in the past. And you rebuilt yourself stronger than ever. Your calm energy also makes you a natural problem solver. When others get caught up in blame, you focus on solutions. Well, they fixate on what went wrong. You ask, what can we do now? You're not in denial. You're in motion. You've learned that chaos is not the enemy. It's a messenger. It reveals what needs to change, what's not working, and what requires attention. Your aura reads between the lines. You don't just see problems, you see patterns. You spot the root of the issue when others are stuck in the surface-level noise. This trait makes you invaluable in any room. In crisis, people want your presence. They trust your judgment. They lean into your energy because it brings relief. But with that comes responsibility. And sometimes, loneliness. Because when you're the one everyone leans on, very few check to see how you're doing. They assume your strength means you don't need support. But the truth is, your calm exterior often hides the weight you carry. You stay composed not because life is easy, but because you've chosen peace as your discipline. Your calmness also creates emotional safety. People feel like they can be vulnerable with you because they don't fear judgment or impulsive reactions. You listen deeply. You respond thoughtfully. You give people the space to process without rushing them. That emotional maturity is rare. It's not just something you show in moments of crisis. It's something you live daily. You don't create drama. You don't feed into conflict. Your boundaries are clear, your presence is peaceful, and your energy is steady. That makes you unforgettable in a world full of noise. In the end, this ability to remain calm in chaos is not a weakness, and it's certainly not detachment. It is the mark of someone who has mastered themselves. It is the quiet roar of someone who has faced storms and chosen not to be defined by them. Your aura, when calm, speaks louder than any argument. It says, I know who I am. I trust my path. And no matter what happens, I will not be moved by fear. Tofa. That kind of inner peace doesn't just lead others. It liberates them. Because it shows them what's possible when power and peace live in the same soul. So if you've ever felt like you don't quite fit in, if you've been told you're too intense, too quiet, too focused, too much, understand this. It's not a flaw. It's a signal. Your aura isn't here to please. It's here to lead. And not everyone will be ready for that. Not everyone will understand the stillness you carry, the clarity in your eyes, or the fire in your silence. But that's not your burden to carry. You weren't made to dim your light to make others comfortable. You weren't built to shrink, soften, or break yourself into pieces so others could feel whole. You were born to stand tall. In truth, in purpose, in power. Let them misunderstand. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them walk away. Because the ones who are meant for your energy, they won't just handle your aura. They'll rise because of it. So don't hold back. Let your aura speak. Let it shine. Let it lead.